What if a high school star from Seattle could rise to the helm of one of the NBA's most storied franchises? Dive into the journey of Mitchell Chase Johnson. I'm Leah, feeling energized and excited to dive into today's topic.
I'm Garrett, buzzing with curiosity about today's story of ambition and achievement.
Laid-back learning with Leah and Garrett.
The rise of a basketball coach and former player, from Seattle gyms to the San Antonio Spurs head seat. That's pretty cool, right? Okay, so here's where we start. I went to this game a while back, a midweek matchup where the home team was just out of rhythm. You know that feeling when everybody's moving fast but nothing connects. The coach calls a timeout, and instead of drawn-out speeches, he makes two simple tweaks. First, he switches the defense from man to zone. Instead of each defender guarding one player, they guard an area. Second, he tells his point guard to simplify reads, reduce the number of decisions on each play. Within minutes, the passes started snapping, players filled the right lanes, and it was like someone tuned an instrument. They didn't turn into superstars on the spot, but the team finally played as a unit. Honestly, watching that shift reminded me of Mitchell Johnson's arc. Sometimes your influence isn't the loudest thing in the room, it's the clarity you bring under pressure. The uncertainty of that game mirrored his path. Early twists, quick pivots, and then a steady hand guiding the whole show.
That's such a vivid picture. Real talk, coaching often looks like soft power, small adjustments that unlock big outcomes. And with Johnson, the pattern shows up again and again. A few minutes of poised decision-making can flip a whole night, and in his case, it flipped a career path. Let's unpack this from the ground up so it all makes sense in order. All right, here's where we begin. The NBA is the National Basketball Association. It's the top professional basketball league in North America. The G League is the NBA's developmental league. Think of it as a professional training ground where players and coaches refine skills and systems. Johnson's journey starts as a player, but it really takes off when he shifts into coaching. If his life were a basketball game, the first quarter is him on the court, reading the floor, setting up teammates. Then he transitions to the sideline where the strategy expands. Instead of one position, he's calling the whole formation. And that word assist you'll hear a lot. An assist is a pass that directly leads to a made basket. It's basically the currency of unselfish basketball, and it defines a lot of who he is.
Yeah, totally. The path he takes feels like a playbook with layered options. First, he's a standout at Odia High School in Seattle. Second, he goes to Stanford, where being a pass-first guard becomes his signature. Third, he pivots early to coaching and steadily climbs through the Spurs system. It's like running a pick and roll with multiple reads. If the lane isn't there, you hit the wing. If the help rotates, you drop it to the big. Johnson keeps finding the open man in his own career, which is kind of poetic.
Let's set the scene for his beginning. Mitchell Chase Johnson was born in Seattle in November 1986 to John Johnson and Jenny Redman. John Johnson is a former NBA forward who won the 1979 title with the Seattle Supersonics, so Mitchell grows up with a real window into the pro world. He goes to Odia High School, coached by Phil Lumpkin, a respected high school coach in Washington. At Odia, Mitchell is the team captain, a 4-time All-Metro pick, 3-time All-Area, 2-time All-State. He averages 22 points and 8 assists as a senior, and he leads Odia to 2 state championships. That's a stack of accolades, but what sticks out is the balance: scoring, facilitating, leading. It tells you he's comfortable being the organizer, who also steps up late. Why does that matter later? Because that identity follows him to Stanford and then into his coaching voice.
Next up, Stanford from 2005 to 2009. He plays 129 games and starts 107 of them. He becomes known for his passing and perimeter defense, consistently near the top of the team in assists and steals. There are tentpole moments. In March 2008, in the NCAA tournament, he records 16 assists against Marquette, which is Stanford's single-game record, then follows with 8 assists versus Texas in the next round. He eventually surpasses 500 career assists and moves to second on Stanford's all-time list in March 2009. He even logs a guards double-double, 11 points and 10 rebounds against Arizona in March 2008, which shows he's willing to do the grimy work on the glass. Career-wise, he averages 4.1 assists and 0.9 steals per game with 5.3 points. So not a volume scorer, but a tone setter. That's the through line.
Then comes the pivot. He goes undrafted in 2009 and joins the Tulsa 66ers in the NBA D-League, which is now called the G League. 7 games, limited minutes, modest numbers. Not gonna lie, that's a tough stretch. He also has a brief stint in Latvia with VF Riga in 2010 to 2011. After that, he decides to focus on coaching, and here's where the layers build fast. In 2011, he's a coaching intern at Seattle University, basically learning the nuts and bolts of scouting, practice plans, and film. He coaches an AAU team in the Nike EYBL. AAU is a major youth circuit, and EYBL brings top high school talent together. Then he becomes an assistant coach at the University of Portland for the Portland Pilots in 2015 to 2016. That's Division I experience on a college bench, which is a legit step into game planning at a higher level.
Here's a thought I've been turning over. Joining the Austin Spurs in 2016, San Antonio's G League team, is kind of like learning a dialect before moving to a new city. Same language, but the slang and rhythm match the big club. In 2018, he's part of the Austin bench that wins the G League championship, a high-stakes environment with tight series and lots of adjustments. Then in 2019, the San Antonio Spurs hire him as an assistant under Greg Popovich. Popovich is the legendary, long-tenured Spurs head coach known for ball movement and accountability. In 2020, Johnson is promoted to full-time assistant, replacing Tim Duncan, who stepped down from his assistant role. Duncan is a Spurs icon and a basketball Hall of Famer, one of the best power forwards ever. So, yeah, that's a vote of trust.
And then the interim windows open. In May 2021, Johnson serves as acting head coach versus the Phoenix Suns, while Popovich attends Tim Duncan's Hall of Fame induction. The result was rough on the scoreboard, but it's a first rep in the big chair. In March 2023, he steps in again, and the Spurs beat the Indiana Pacers. That shows he can steady the ship on short notice. Then, in November 2024, Popovich is sidelined by a health issue later revealed as a stroke. Johnson is informed about 2.5 hours before tip that he's leading the team, and the Spurs beat the Minnesota Timberwolves 113 to 103. That's a heavy night emotionally and logistically. He then serves as interim head coach for the remainder of the season. The NBA later credits the team's 32-45 record over those final 77 games to him. It's bookkeeping, but it matters for history and context.
Speaking of context, there's also his day-to-day connection with Victor Wembanyama in 2023. Wembanyama is the franchise's young centerpiece, a 7-plus-foot phenom with guard-like skills. Johnson is assigned to warm him up before games. That's a hands-on relationship builder. Reps, language, trust. Then in May 2025, Johnson is promoted to head coach after Popovich steps down following 29 seasons. That's succession by design. The Spurs are big on continuity, and this move fits that blueprint. In July 2025, the league clarifies it will credit those 77 games from 2024 to the 2025 season to Johnson's record, since Popovich only coached 5. The paper trail lines up with what everyone saw. Johnson was steering the team.
Okay, let's move on to a tricky footnote. There's a coaching record entry floating around that lists a Spurs season with 82 games, a 62-20 record, first in the Southwest Division, and a trip to the NBA Finals under Johnson. But there's no season year or narrative anywhere else to back it up. To me, that's a red flag. Likely a formatting artifact or placeholder line, not a verified achievement. Without a season stamp and supporting details, it doesn't pass the smell test.
Yeah, that checks out. I could see how a table template gets copied, a row gets left in, and suddenly it looks official. Especially if there are duplicate tables, which sometimes happens when stats pull from different sources. It's like seeing a ghost screen in a playbook. If it's unlabeled and doesn't match film, you don't run it. But here's another angle. Even if fans spot that shiny 62-20, the way the league officially attributes records, like those 77 games in 2024 to 2025, grounds the real resume. So I get the confusion, but the verified timeline still tells the story.
True, and it raises a bigger question. Do these errors have lasting consequences for how people view a coach? On one hand, casual glances at a table can inflate or deflate perception. On the other, serious evaluation leans on verified league records and the narrative of actual games. My take is, it's a nudge for all of us to cross-check the tough-to-believe items. If there's an extraordinary claim, it should have ordinary, clear documentation behind it.
I'm down for that. In Johnson's case, the established facts are already compelling. Multiple interim stints under pressure, that November 2024 same-day assignment and win, and the May 2025 promotion. It's a clean arc, even without the mythical 6220. So yeah, I'd call the mystery line a formatting fumble, not part of the game film.
Switching gears just a little, there's a pop culture tie-in that I love. Tim Duncan's Hall of Fame induction in 2021 intersects with Johnson's first game as acting head coach. Duncan is a cultural figure in basketball, not just a stats legend, and that night became this symbolic passing of moments. Also, with Johnson's dad being part of the 1979 Seattle Supersonics title team, there's a heritage thread that filmmakers would eat up. The arcs are ready-made. Young floor general international stint, G-League title, emergency interim duty, and then the promotion. You can see the scenes already.
All right, let's set the stage for a what-if. What if he had been drafted in 2009? If he sticks in the NBA as a player for a long run, the coaching pivot could be pushed back a decade or never happen at this scale. Maybe he's a veteran guard mentor on a bench, which is cool, but that's a different timeline. The early coaching years at Seattle University, Nike EYBL AAU, and Portland might never stack up the same way. In a weird way, the short pro playing stint cleared runway for his coaching strengths. Communication, teaching, and system fluency got years of daily practice.
And here's the other counterfactual. What if Greg Popovich hadn't suffered that health issue in 2024? Popovich is such a stabilizing presence. Without that interruption, maybe Johnson doesn't get the extended interim window that showcased his in-game management across 77 games. He likely still progresses because the Spurs value continuity, but the timing could shift. Instead of May 2025, maybe the baton pass happens later, or he gets more spot duty but not a full season sample. It's sobering, and it also underlines how prepared he was to step in. Preparation meeting circumstance can change a trajectory overnight.
Yeah, and that's where the Spurs pipeline matters. Pipeline just means a consistent path for developing people. Austin to San Antonio is a straight line in terms of language and expectations. So when life threw a curveball, the system absorbed the shock. Johnson from warming up Victor Wembanyama, building trust and a shared vocabulary, to scouting reports and late-game calls, he'd rehearsed a lot of the role. When the lights went up, he wasn't guessing. He was executing.
All right, that ties it up nicely. Stay curious and keep exploring new stories.
Until next time, keep learning and stay laid back.